People usually change over time. It's slow and not always noticeable. But one day you wake up and look at yourself in the mirror and are astonished at the fact that you are now a different person. Sometimes these changes come on more rapidly. Oftentimes when rapid change occurs, it is due to something more dramatic. This is often what happens to our heroes and everyday people when they experience a severe traumatic event. As such, this change often manifests itself through post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. PTSD is a mental disorder in which a person experiences ongoing or emotional and psychological stress as a result of a severe injury or psychological trauma that often manifests itself in the form of guilt, blame, aggression, haunting recall of said events and experiences, and a distance or lack of interest in regards to the outside world. Today we'll be looking at some of the heroes in the comics who suffer from this very real condition, what happened to them and how they reacted, as we count down the top 10 superheroes with PTSD. That's right, Dr. Amanda is back in the house. Be sure to stick around till the end of the video as well, as we have some bonus content to share with you. Alright, let's get counting. Number 10. Rorschach. Rorschach didn't always see the world as being as corrupt as it was. There was a time that he actually believed in the good of humanity. This, however, all changed when he was investigating a case of a missing girl and discovered that she had been murdered, chopped up, and fed to the killer's dogs. Rorschach was so traumatized by this event that he snapped and burnt the murderer and the building to the ground. This changed entirely his view of the world, made him become less trusting and more paranoid. In a sense, he blamed the world for being cruel enough to let innocents die, and took it upon himself to expose corruption wherever he found it, even if it meant putting world peace at risk. Number 9. Wonder Woman. After finding out that she was living in an illusion and that her time spent on Themyscira was not real, Wonder Woman becomes catatonic in volume 5 of her series. She goes into complete shock and becomes removed from the outside world and retreats further into her mind. There she experiences hallucinations and is forced to wrestle with her mental state as she tries to separate reality from fantasy. She even imagines a snake in her arm that comes out to talk to her. All of this happens while she is staying in a mental institution. Unfortunately, none of the doctors are much use to Diana there though, as she is instead being treated for being delusional in regards to thinking that she is Wonder Woman, which the doctors do not believe, as opposed to her actual trauma. In the end, she ends up kind of curing herself through self-exploration, which is not the way that most therapists would probably suggest you handle your own PTSD. Number 8. Damage. Ethan Avery had a passion for heroics. He grew up admiring and aspiring to be like the best of the best in DC, Superman and the Flash. He joined the military and applied to be a part of the Damage program, a program that was experimenting on soldiers in an attempt to grant them superpowers. He was approved and was given the Damage serum, sort of similar to Marvel's Super Soldier serum, except this serum turned Ethan into a monstrosity of a hero. The serum granted him the ability to turn into a Hulk-like beast for 1 hour every day. The only problem was that he lost control during this time, and often could not recall what had even happened. He was told he was doing a good job, but Ethan became doubtful as he couldn't remember himself what he had done. Blackout periods are a symptom of PTSD, as is aggression. In other words, one could argue that Damage's existence, or the transformation into Damage itself, gives Ethan PTSD. The character of Damage himself is also a symbolic representation for a soldier's PTSD. Number 7. Flash Thompson. Spider-Man's high school bully turned bestie, who later becomes Agent Venom, has served in more than one war, so it isn't surprising that he suffers from PTSD. Many war veterans suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of the shocking violence and death that they have witnessed and experienced. Flash Thompson's experience seems to have been no exception. He actually served in both the Vietnam War and served in Iraq. Even though he lost his legs in Iraq, Vietnam also affected the veteran dramatically. When he returned from Vietnam, his depression and PTSD caused him to turn to alcohol and made him an alcoholic. And later, when he returned from Iraq, despite knowing he had done the right thing, he still mourned the loss of his legs, and was eager for the chance to, in a sense, grow them back when he bonded with the symbiote. His legs had been lost after he suffered from gunshot wounds, but he continued on, risking his own well-being to help save the platoon. Number 6. Batman. Bruce Wayne witnessed the death of his parents at a very young age. While some have tried to argue that Bruce does not suffer from any mental illness, I would say that if you experience something like that, you have to have some kind of baggage, especially as we never really explore how young Bruce dealt with his trauma. He isn't often shown visiting a therapist once a week, for example. In essence, his becoming Batman seems to in a way symbolize that he feels guilt for losing his parents. Not necessarily personal guilt, as he was just a child, what could he really have done to save his parents, but in regards to his societal guilt. He becomes Batman in an attempt to make Gotham a better place. While he doesn't seem to distance himself or experience trauma when surrounded by violence or guns, anything connected to the traumatic experience, he does choose to not use guns, abhorring them because of his trauma. He becomes paranoid and hypervigilant, which can also be a sign of PTSD, and he basically manifests a split persona in regards to his Batman identity. He has nightmares of the event and becomes restless, never really sleeping at night, as it is when he is keeping watch on the city. And he also has to act during the day as a CEO for Wayne Enterprises, preferring instead to take micro naps as opposed to sleep. Which, by the way, you should not try at home, as they don't actually give a human being enough rest in real life. Truth. I tried it once. Didn't work. Wish that I was lying about that, but I'm not. Number 5. Winter Soldier. Bucky Barnes had to deal with the shock of not a specific moment, but a lifetime of them. He was captured by the Russians and turned into a weapon, given a robotic arm and brainwashed into becoming the ultimate assassin. When the Cosmic Cube was used to give him back his memories, he became overwhelmed with guilt in regards to his actions. In the film, he has literal triggers in the form of activation words. At one point, he gets a space dog in the comics that seems to give Bucky the kind of companionship that a dog trained to help traumatized veterans would. Poor Bucky also seems to always keep getting pulled back into war, as though his trauma makes him feel like his role as a killer is inescapable. So sad. Poor Bucky. Always makes me cry. Number 4. Wolverine. Oh, where to start with Logan? His entire childhood is basically trauma after trauma. Wolverine basically has been on a constant journey from one cause of PTSD to the next cause of PTSD. Even in regards to his experience as an adult, almost everyone he has ever loved ends up brutally murdered, and he always seems to find this out through actually finding their corpses. In the Old Man Logan storyline, even his 2 young children are killed. Jeez. As a result of all the trauma, Wolverine often retreats from the outside world, often being presented as a loner. It is hard for him to open up to people, though he does manage to end up getting close to some, like the members of his X-Men family. He is also presented as someone who really likes to drink, choosing to numb himself with an endless flow of beer at times. Number 3. Jessica Jones. Not all PTSD is linked to violence and loss of loved ones. Jessica Jones's PTSD comes out of her traumatic experience of being raped and manipulated by Purple Man. Kilgrave used his influence over her to make her do all kinds of criminal acts between the comics and her Netflix show. At first, Jessica seems to respond to this after being released from his control by blaming herself. She also goes on to explain that she worries as to the blurred lines between what she actually wanted to do and what she was forced to do. It's hard for her to decide which is which. And moving forward, it's even hard to discern what actions are still linked to that trauma for her. As a result of this traumatic experience, we see Jessica take a pretty big step back from the hero life, and it takes her a while before she's ready to join a team again. Kilgrave also continues to remain a trigger for Jessica in regards to her PTSD, often causing her to retreat into hiding whenever he resurfaces. Number 2. Punisher. The poster boy for PTSD in Marvel Comics. Frank Castle's disorder extends beyond his experience as a soldier. When he takes leave from the war during a visit home, he witnesses his entire family get murdered. He's also targeted in the attack, where he and his family just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Miraculously though, he survives, and much to his dismay. This combined with his experience in the war turns Castle into a hellhound of a vigilante, seeking justice for his dead family and for other innocents. He brutally kills anyone that gets in his way. Though to be fair, he does only target the bad guys. But a lot of the issues for Castle with many is that he decides who the bad guys are, and the needless violence that he represents. I personally think there are 2 sides to the hero. While the glorification of violence is problematic, he allows us to examine what war and violence can do to people. He allows us to see the consequences. This hasn't just happened to the fictional anti-hero Frank Castle. This is what is happening to soldiers and first responders who are in action every day. And I think he's important because he helps to spark the conversation around violence and by extension, mental illness. Number 1. All of them. While I really wanted to make Frank Castle the number 1 on this list, I honestly couldn't because so many heroes actually suffer from PTSD. In fact, I would say almost every single hero does. In their line of work, they see all kinds of atrocities and are forced to deal with the loss of life on a daily basis. Even worse, they are pretty much always survivors, making their guilt often feel even bigger and even worse. Every hero has a trigger as well in some cases. Ultimately, all heroes are that double-edged sword sword. We explore violence and the consequences of violence through them, whether the violence be physical or mental. While all hero stories represent a glorification of fighting, of war, or of abuse, they also offer us a lens through which we can explore why this is an issue. When is conflict okay? Is it ever okay? Are there things worth fighting for? Where do we draw the line? They also allow us to explore that it's alright to not be okay, that people fail sometimes, that your experiences will change you, and that's alright. Many of us have experienced things in our lives that will change us, traumatic or not, and these intense experiences allow us to connect with these heroes through our own versions of trauma, or just our own personal experiences which moved us. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. What do you think of the exploration of mental illness in comics or in media or art? Are there any heroes that you believe we missed? I mean, I did sort of say all of them, so I doubt that's really possible, but let me know if there is anyone that you feel deserves a specific shout out. Maybe they'll appear in a part 2. As promised, I also have some bonus content for you in the form of comments from my video Top 10 Joker Easter Eggs That You Missed. Twisted Teddy said, moment of silence for the best damn Joker we ever had. R.I.P. Heath Ledger. I'm with you. Ledger and Hamill are my two favorite Jokers. Moment of silence commencing for Heath. Cringy AF shouts, Nerd Squad! Okay, I'm glad to have you part of the squad. I'm loving that enthusiasm, my fellow nerd. And that's all the comments we have time for today. While you are on your way down to comment, remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring our bell. This is Top 10 Nerd, and my name is Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.